if you're ready, George, I really appreciate you taking the time to show people who want to make their pastels ahead of time how to do it.
Great. Okay, well, it's clear I'm no technician. So I try to make things as simple as I can for myself. And so I hope this doesn't seem complicated. The only thing you've got to watch for is, because the beeswax is a fat, it's flammable. So you want to be sure that when you're melting the beeswax, it doesn't get directly in contact with your heat.
Right.
So that's why I've used a double boiler, because I have this old tin type, and I actually think it leaks a bit from the bottom, so I didn't want to put it right on the element. So there it is in my water, and it's starting to melt down. So basically what I've done is I've taken 3 samples here the other day.
Okay.
Put the proportions of 1.1, 111, 211, and a 411.
Amazing.
And I thought, because I really like a soft pastel, and I find that 111 is a little too soft. It's almost like solid oil paint.
Right.
211 was not much different. And 411, actually, to my surprise, I thought it would be too waxy, but 411 is perfect.
Okay, so what are the parts in 4 parts of wet, 1 part of wet, and 1 part of wet?
4 parts wax, beeswax, which you'll add first, then 1 part oil, which you'll add second, and one part oil paint, which you'll add third. And I found in my studio, which is pretty chilly, that it sets up pretty quickly. The wax sets up pretty quickly. So you want to get, depending on where you are and your conditions, but I had to get stirring right away to make sure that the wax didn't set up to make it too lumpy.
Right.
So what I got here, I don't know whether we can see this or not. You can see the 4.1 is the one I actually like the best, whereas 1.1 is pretty greasy here.
Right. So you can easily wipe that off still.
Yeah. So I've also got a little scale here. And I'll pour the hot wax in there, and then I'll know how much of the oil and how much of the oil paint I have to add. The scale will tell me what to do. Okay, so
the 1 part, the parts are all done by weight on the scale.
If my scale works, it appears to be working. So I'm going to put measure of 2 in there. I'll turn off that thing.
Okay, and that's natural beeswax melted in a double boiler?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, and if people don't have, if they don't have a double boiler or a pot of water that they can set a bowl on, can they melt it in the microwave too?
I don't know. Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't they?
As long as they're careful, of course, because it is flammable.
Right. So I put in the wax and I put in the oil.
Yes.
Now I'm adding the oil paint.
Okay, and the oil is just linseed oil?
Yeah, it's actually it's sun thickened linseed oil. That's the kind I used to use when I was doing my oil painting. And then you stir make sure that your oil and the oil paint are as integrated as you can get with the wax. It doesn't take long for the wax to begin to set up. And if you don't get it as integrated as much as possible, then what will happen is you'll have clumps of oil and clumps of wax, and it won't be very homogeneous. But I was really happy with 411. 411 worked perfectly. And it's a really, for what we're going to do, it's a great combination. If you know, the people are making this, they happen to deviate a little bit from the formula, it'll probably work. You know, it won't be the end of the world. And it's fun. It's kind of fun to experiment with the different combinations of the oil, the wax, and the oil paint. You know, if you put a really waxy surface on and you were working on a wood panel board, you could polish it. You could really polish that wax right into the board. And then, you know, with whatever your marker, whatever your drawing tool was, it would cut through that wax. It could be a beautiful surface to work on. So there's lots of room to experiment. And, you know, I'm not a technician, but I love to mess around with this stuff. So everyone's encouraged to do this. So you'll only need one of these giant pastels. I use the standard, you know, the standard styrofoam drinking cup. And that seems to be a good size. So you can hold this in your hand.
I see. So the cup is like the mold, and your finished pastel will be the same size and dimension, shape as the cup.
Great. So I let this set for 2 days, and it was
and
just.
You can let it set just at room temperature then.
Yeah. That wax will really set up nicely. So it's still fairly liquid, but I wonder if I can. Can you see what that? You can see it's still.
Can you hold it up just a little bit higher, George?
Yeah,
and you can see.
Let's see now. There we are.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like maybe ice cream, kind of thicker than yogurt for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so that's just going to get thicker and thicker. The other day when I was making the trial ones, I ran my palette knife around the edge after it had kind of set. And that way it freed it from the edge of the styrofoam.
I see.
But the styrofoam peels off anyway. So if you forget to do that, it's not too serious. Nothing's too serious.
Playing, experimenting, these are the joys of being an artist.
Right. Yeah. I don't know about the bees. I don't know whether they do too much experimenting, but they seem to enjoy what they do.
Yeah. I think you saw in the still life compositions that you made for the bees to work with, they kind of mimic the shape of the vases that you put in there, and they built these kind of rings of honeycomb around, which was fascinating.
Great. Is that the still life that we're going to be working from, or are all 3 still lives going to be there?
Yeah, we could have all, I'll put all 3 out, and can put the camera on whichever one you are most interested in focusing on, and we can move from one to the other.
Okay. So basically that's it, Sandy. There's nothing.
That's it.
Nothing complicated unless your burner doesn't work.
Sure. Do you want to go over any, you know, so the oil paint, is there any specific kind? Is it specifically titanium white oil paint, color that people should use?
I tried to keep the materials just as toxic free as possible, as natural as possible. And titanium is one of the colorants that isn't toxic. It's not carcinogenic like the cadmium family. It's not toxic like the lead family. There's a whole bunch that aren't really good to eat. I wouldn't suggest eating it, but titanium's not bad. And the linseed oil is not super. I mean, you don't drink linseed oil either, but.
Right. Is linseed the same as flaxseed?
Yeah, I think so. I think it comes from flax, linseed oil. I could be mistaken.
I think that's correct. And then we have alkali refined linseed oil here, is that going to be, just fine, or is it maybe a little bit thinner than the sun thickened oil?
Yeah, I would go to an art grade linseed oil, because it's a little bit thicker. And I found that any other oils mixed with the oil paint, sometimes the paints just don't dry. So that's why I always use the sun thickened linseed oil.
Okay, great. So, and then of course, beeswax comes from bees. You can get it from a beekeeper.
Yep. Yeah, you can get it from a beekeeper at probably a great staving. I went to Nutters because I didn't, I just wanted to go someplace fast. I forget what I paid for it, but I think the wax that I got or I had priced out with the beekeeper was less expensive. And you don't have to get the top grade oil paint either. When I went to Michael's, I looked for the cheapest oil paint I could find. So you don't have to go to Golden or,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just as long as it's titanium white.
Titanium white. Yep, that's it. And when you make a graphite mark through this oil pastel, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful surface to draw in, because the fat in the wax and the oil it does something with the graphite, and it makes it a beautiful, smooth, dark line. Much different than when you're working the dry graphite on paper.
Oh, okay. So George, we're this oil beeswax and oil pastel preparation is for the still life drawing workshop you'll be leading over Zoom for the Art Gallery of Regina on October 24th. And so people will have the opportunity to use these oil pastels that they make themselves. And when you say drawing on them in graphite, is that like a regular pencil, or is that a graphite stick?
A pencil will probably work better, because we're going to do a variety of things. And if you bring like a 2B pencil and then a higher grade graphite, like a 6B or even an 8B, will work really well. And a good eraser that that will lift that graphite, or at least move the graphite along. Something that a lot of erasers now are those kind of rubber type erasers. But if you can get another kind, did they used to be called art gum erasers? I don't know whether they have them in the supply stores now, but
is that a kneadable eraser, the ones that you can kind of pull apart like silly putty, or is it more like a kind of almost a translucent yellow block?
Yeah, a translucent yellow block. The kneadable charcoal eraser is great for charcoal, but not so good for graphite.
All right. Okay. And then George, just for people who maybe don't know, H in pencils stands for hardness, B stands for black. So you say they should start at 2B, which is pretty black, and up to 6B, which is very, very black and also very, very soft.
Yeah, I think it designates the amount of graphite to lead. So if you go the other way, if you go to the B side, or rather to the H side, you'll get more lead, which is a wicked little pencil, not nice to use for the kind of work that I like to do. I like it soft. I like it kind of carbony and, stuff that really mixes around.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, George. Any last tips for people creating their oil pastels before they join our Still Life Sunday on October 24th?
I can't think of anything. If there's any weird questions that come in, people have problems, I'll be happy to deal with them through you. But I think it won't be a problem. I think actually people will enjoy doing it once it's set up. It'll be great.
Yeah, it sounds like in a way you can't go wrong, because any mistakes, just embrace them. They're part of your process.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you, George. I'm going to just put some titles up on this video, edit it up, and put it up on YouTube for people to follow along. And do you want to recap the steps? Just just so people know?
Yep, beeswax, oil paint, and linseed oil in proportions of 4 parts beeswax to 1 part oil paint and 1 part linseed oil.
Perfect. And just
Yep.
melt down very carefully, not to cause a fire. Melt down your beeswax, then you add the linseed oil and the oil paint to it.
That's right. Yep.
Perfect.
And stir
stir well.
Yeah. Give it a couple of days and it should set up really well.
Super.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, George. Thank you so much for recording this video. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.